A busy one, as I said. Sam Yarnell will be here in 10 minutes to discuss with me some of what we'll be discussing right here in the big story in just a couple of moments. Bill Bender is here because if it's a Monday, we're talking college hoops as things start to kick into gear with conference tournaments right around the corner and obviously March Madness shortly after that. So Bill Bender of the Sporting News will join us for that discussion. And Jerry Bonkowski will join us on Mondays as well. Our friend from Essentially Sports covers NASCAR for them. Get some thoughts with him on all things NASCAR related. That coming up a little later on in the program, as well with the Daytona 500, which we are going to discuss right now as we kick things off. We do every day. It's the big story. And the big story starts in the NBA, where they tried yet again to pump up, revitalize, interject some life, maybe a little defense into the NBA All-Star Game. And look, it had its moments. I don't want to say it was a complete dud, but when all is said and done, you can't scream at me for 2 weeks about USA versus the world. And every other commercial on any NBC property was USA versus the world and Tears for Fears singing everybody wants to rule the world and, you know, Wemby and all these guys. And then I get a championship game for the All-Star Game. That's the USA versus the USA, and it was back to being the same old crappy All-Star Game where one team wins by a zillion points. You can't get me all excited about USA versus the world in this round-robin tournament, and then the round-robin tournament ends with US playing the US. Nope, not going to work for me. After you had a terrible All-Star Saturday, a dunk contest that was embarrassing with Max McClung not playing in it, not participating in it because he's tired of being treated like a one-trick pony. And you know what? Frankly, I don't blame the guy. He wants to be treated like a basketball player, not some sideshow, not some freak who's, you know, the white guy that can jump out of the gym. He don't want to be treated that way. So he says, I'm not going to try to win a fourth NBA All-Star Game, All-Star Weekend Slam Dunk Championship. I'm not going to try to do that. I want to focus on being an NBA player. So he doesn't participate in that. Yeah, the three-point shootout. I mean, it's terrible. And they're charging good money for this stuff. There was no buzz in the Intuit Dome on Saturday night for that event. And again, Sunday had its moments, but in totality, I mean, the bar is set so low right now for what people are expecting from the NBA All-Star Game that you had people, I mean, waxing poetic about this NBA All-Star Game on Sunday, and it was mediocre at best. Like, what was so exciting about that? You know, you had these 12-minute games where teams for the first 7 minutes don't play any defense again, and then they take it seriously for the last 5 to make it a good show. Like my godfather used to say when he'd see me play sports, good show, good show. I mean, that's what you essentially had. NBA is going to try and get all excited. I'll be interested, as always, to see how many people tuned in and watched it. My sense is probably not that many, but it is what it is, and that's what you get from the NBA. You know, Sam and I are going to talk about this. I think they've got to continue to try different things. It doesn't have to be the same thing every year. Let's try something different next year. You know, I've got ideas of my own. Sam and I will talk about it coming up in a few minutes. That's big story number 1. Big story number 2. The Daytona 500, the Great American Race. And it had a great American finish. Tyler Reddick is your winner of the Daytona 500, his first Daytona 500 win. And Jerry Bonkowski will join us coming up much later in the show to talk about that. Longtime NASCAR writer with EssentiallySports.com. But what you had was a race with more lead changes than any in Daytona 500 history. I think it was like 26, 23, I forget what the number is. But a ton of lead changes in this race. And like most of these super speedway restrictor plate races, you got what you get in all of these races, which is hang around, figure out a way not to get caught up in the big one, and then try and steal it late. Tyler Reddick led for 1 lap of this race, and it was the final lap of the race, which had 2 wrecks unto itself in it, where it looked like Michael McDowell was going to be the winner coming out of the caution that led into those final couple of laps. Then you had Carson Hocevar, you know, the crazy, wild young driver who was involved in so many different wrecks over the first couple of years of his career in NASCAR. He looked like he had a chance to win it. He gets bumped out of the way and winds up, wrecking himself. And ultimately, Tyler Reddick just winds up right place, right time. And speaking of right place, right time, Michael Jordan, number 7. He's got his 7th title, and this one is a Daytona 500. It is the first sort of landmark win for 23XI Racing. It comes off this wild year or so where you have Michael Jordan in 23XI Racing suing NASCAR, part of that big lawsuit that got settled over the winter. And Michael Jordan winning a Daytona 500 as a NASCAR race owner. And it's amazing. We all wondered what kind of NBA owner he would be if Michael Jordan could succeed as owner of the Charlotte Bobcats and then eventually the Hornets. And it didn't work out for him there. Who would have thought that Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player of all time, would wind up having one of his greatest accomplishments in NASCAR? Who would have thunk it? And now he's certainly here to stay. And now he becomes an even bigger force within the sport. Amazing. We'll talk about it later in the show with Jerry Bonkowski. More on the NBA All-Star Game next. We continue on this Monday, and a lot to do in the show. Bill Bender coming up in 10 minutes to talk college basketball. Get some thoughts with him. So the NBA All-Star Game did its thing on Sunday, whatever the hell that is. It just tells me, and I said this in the big story, so I won't be labored here because I want to let Sam get in and hear his thoughts. It just tells us how low the bar was for this thing. How low the bar is when it comes to all-star games in general, but especially the NBA where it's been so bad, where it's like, wow, they tried for like half of these 12-minute quarters, and you know, a few of the games were good, even though the game that ultimately decided it was awful. And then for 2 weeks, all I heard was, everybody wants to rule the world. And then I get USA versus USA in the championship game. So just stop. Stop telling me this. Just stop. I can't. I'm done. Go ahead.
Yeah. The NBA All-Star Game is ruined. I mean, you said it very well, Jason. They've tried to do a bunch of things. I think there's a large contingent that would agree that, like, we're at a point where we should start trying other things. I think Nick Wright famously has a great idea for what we should do. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go out there and find it yourself. I think that we're at a point where it actually might be fun to do what Nick Wright has proposed we should do with the All-Star Game.
Tell us, because not everybody's going to go and do that.
You'll have to go. There are plenty of Google machines for all of you to go find it independently. He does a much better job explaining it than I ever could. But I do think it's intricate enough to where, the competition could be revamped. Like, it's not beyond savable. I think that's my point, right? Like, I also think there's a little bit of a letdown for basketball fans not like myself, basketball fans from your era, Jason, who remember watching the All-Star games on NBC in the 1990s, who remember watching the classic All-Star games where one team was just wearing their home uniforms and the other team was just wearing their road uniforms, and they were just playing actual 48 minutes of basketball. it seems like there was a contingent of NBA fan that was let down by all that. But I'll tell you, Jason, the new generation of NBA fan like myself didn't watch a minute of whatever they put on TV because we were glued to the internet because yesterday was very eventful in the NBA sphere.
Before we get to the all this crazy stuff that went on in NBA social media, and by the way, the NBA wanted to put 200 content creators and all those social media people. Well, they had the time of their life. I'll give you a solution, by the way, for the All-Star game. I don't know why they wouldn't do this. Give me a one-on-one tournament. Give me one-on-one.
That's interesting.
I'll take one-on-one. I'd rather watch the best players in the world, and you match them up size-wise and stuff. I don't need, somebody Allen Iverson size going up against Victor Wembanyama, although that would be funny to watch. I would love to see a one-on-one tournament. And I think the players would love it. I think they play. That would be my suggestion.
It is a good idea. I wonder if they've considered anything before. The only thing that I think would hinder them from wanting to do that is like maybe an increased injury concern, but I can't see where that would come from. You seem less injury prone playing one-on-one than you do 5-on-5. Regardless, I think it's a great idea, Jason.
Yeah. So social media was all abuzz yesterday for a myriad of reasons. Now, you got to be careful and take this stuff with a grain of salt. This Kevin Durant burner account that people are talking about, is it real? Is it not real? But some of the content on it, again, go and look at it for yourself. This is the time where I'll do the Sam and say, if you haven't seen it, go look at the Kevin Durant content that's being put to him.
We can't say it on national TV.
We can't say it on national TV. It's bad enough I had a show almost go out on Thursday with the word bleed, with the S word in it. So go ahead, Sam, and tell us some of what we saw on social media.
Oh, I mean, the story rocks, Jason. So allegedly, there's this group chat that Kevin Durant has been using his burner Twitter account to engage in for what feels like years through all the screenshot evidence that was put out yesterday. And it's crazy. You start to connect the dots and you're like, oh my gosh, this is what he really thought about. There's a hilarious moment that allegedly Kevin Durant has when referring to Steph Curry and how the Warriors team looked at him when he tried to call Steph Curry out during a film session all those years ago when he was on Golden State. I'll tell you, it is some of the funniest sports content that you will ever see. Some of the most hilarious nicknames that he has. He refers to Nikola Jokic as, quote, triple-double, I don't think I'm allowed to say this word on national TV, bear. That's hilarious. We're going to call Nikola Jokic the triple-double blank bear for the rest of time. That is what that guy needs to be known as from now on. Yeah, this was great for the NBA, Jason, because while they put out a horrible product on the court at the Intuit Dome, what this, along with a couple of other things that we don't necessarily need to get into, did was it brought people's attention back to the NBA. It brought people to talk about Kevin Durant and LeBron James and Michael Jordan on All-Star Night, which is exactly what the NBA wanted, despite it not being for the fact of what they put on the floor and Intuit Dome. And Adam Silver's also got to be very happy. Nobody was talking about Kawhi and his fake tree deal yesterday.
And a lot of people weren't even talking about what he mentioned with regard to tanking and all the stuff that was going on. It was by Sunday that was off the front pages as well because of all of this social media stuff.
We didn't have enough time because last week, I should say, was a hectic week on the show. The tanking thing, I greatly appreciate as a Washington Wizards fan.
Yeah.
It does seem like the league is finally trying to do right by the teams that consistently finish in the bottom three in terms of record, but somehow end up with a pick that's barely inside the top 10. I'm glad that Silver's doing something about this, and it's unfortunate that Flagg going to Dallas and Wembanyama going to San Antonio had to be what caused it.
Yeah, and I'm anxious to see, what the Board of Governors and the league come up with as far as sort of resolving this issue is concerned. I think they're going to try a number of different things. They started with the fines, and I think there is going to be more to come on this front. It'll be interesting to watch the final 30 games of the season to see how teams handle it too.
Let me ask you, what do you think? Because I had someone postulate this to me last week. What do you think about them just using first half record? Or first 2/3 of the season winning percentage.
That's what Richard Jefferson suggested.
Season.
That's what Richard Jefferson suggested, was use the first half of the season. But I think every solution has its pitfalls so far that I've seen. Bill Bender joins us next. Welcome back to the show. Mondays are now about college basketball with Bill Bender. Does a great job with the sporting news. Lends us his expertise and his fondness for coaching 6th grade girls basketball. Come on, give me the story.
Like I said, we had fun. We had fun over the weekend. I have a great group of girls, and we experienced.
It's not about fun. It's about winning. Stop. No participation trophies here.
Not for us. High. You experience a lot of highs, a lot of lows, and it's. I told them after we lost Sunday, it was a little bit like that NCAA tournament team that kind of rides high off a really big win, and then you lose the next game, and that's okay. I know that's not the speech going on in a lot of Division I locker rooms probably heading into the tournament, but they're kids, and you want them to have fun playing basketball.
I agree. Yeah, be a good coach. God, 6th grade girls. All right, so I watched Michigan, and I have no problem admitting this. And I've said this before on the show, and Sam knows. I don't get into college basketball until now. So this weekend, moored to my couch because our dog's having some health issues, so I had to keep an eye on them all weekend. I got to watch Michigan, and my God, are they good? They've got 9 starters on that team, Bill. It's remarkable to watch. It's an embarrassment of riches. And I was thoroughly impressed with what they did against a UCLA team. That's a good team that they dismantled in the second half of that game.
Yeah, not just that. The game before against Northwestern, they're down 16 in the second half, and everybody's drafting tweets about how they're overrated, and then they score 45 points in the remainder of the second half over 15 minutes. They have a gear. You said it. They have 9 players that can put the ball in the hoop. Sometimes when you watch them, you don't know who the starters are. I think that's the sign of the depth. And, I heard a couple analysts this weekend saying you could take, Yaxel or Mara and put any 4 guys around them, and you'd have a tournament team off the bench.
How do you think Mara translates at the next level?
Not sure yet. He needs to work on free throws. Obviously, that's the big hole in his game. Classic big man, mobile. He hit a couple threes. When he's hitting threes in games, you're done. Trying to defend them. Had some moments in the Northwestern game that weren't pretty, but I think the key is that they have 2 point guards, Kaysen and Elliot Cadeau. Cadeau, when he's on and he's not turning the ball over, they're national championship worthy. If that's not happening, and they turn the ball over and get loose with it, that's when you can get in a dicey game in March.
Bill, elsewhere in the Big Ten, for the sake of continuity, there was a big game on Friday night that could have implications in about 4 or 5 weeks. Between Wisconsin and Michigan State, where are you at with those 2 teams? We've talked a lot about bracketology. Where are you at with those 2 teams? Are they both in? Is one in right now?
They're both in. It's just a matter of where they're seated. You look at Michigan State, they were a 2 seed a couple weeks ago. They lose to Michigan at 13. Ken Palm is 13, net 15. I think their stretch is coming. They're playing. 3 of their last 4 games are on the road at Purdue, at Michigan, and at Indiana. So we're going to find out. I mean, I've learned over the years, Sam, you just don't write off Tom Izzo. Well, the second we do, they make a Final Four run. But the urgency around Fears, who leads the Big Ten in assists, is much higher than it was. And Wisconsin's trending in the right direction. I mean, they have wins against Michigan and Michigan State. They're probably around a 6. I can't say 6-7 on the air. I did. They are a, every time I do it, my girls basketball team laughs, but they are a number 6 or number 7 seed right
now. What'd you make of the decision by, officials to suspend Duncan Powell for 3 games? The fight that everybody's seen by now. We did a sports wrap short on it this weekend. 6 players ejected from that Providence St. John's game. The foul, obviously, on Bryce Hopkins. Was it the right decision to go 3 games there?
I think it's a statement because this is all I'm seeing on my timeline, whether it's an NBA game, a college game, a high school game, not a 6th grade game. We don't do that in 6th grade, but somewhere they might, unfortunately. I hate to say it, but you got to put a stop to it. And I think this is the right penalty at the right time. We've had back-to-back weekends where we're talking about students on the floor, throwing punches. Now you have this brawl that was really ugly, a black eye for both teams. And, hopefully, this sends a message that this can't be done. I mean, when you see it at the NBA level, it's a different story, but it shouldn't be happening on college basketball courts.
But I mean, let's be honest. There's a very fine line now between what is college basketball and what is pro basketball. They're all getting paid. So, I mean, at the end of the day, that was kind of my takeaway was Fair, we have to stop with the conversation. I hate it, but we have to stop with the conversation with these are college kids. No, they're not. They're all paid mercenaries now.
Well, then in that case, you could suspend the guys for the rest of the season, theoretically.
Absolutely.
And then I wouldn't have a problem with it because, I mean, again, this is it goes down to we could get into the sportsmanship stuff, but that's not it. It's just if you're going to be a professional, be a professional. Don't get in a fight on the court. These shouldn't be happening.
What about St. John's? How do you view them in the overall landscape when we start looking ahead to the tournament here?
This is the second straight year where I probably value them more than Ken Palm and Net does because I value Rick Pitino. I value the defense, the toughness of that team. And I think it's hard because UConn and St. John's have that unenviable position of being in the Big East where you can't pile up a bunch of quad 1 victories. But that doesn't mean that they're not good. So I think, it goes for St. John's and UConn. UConn probably drops down to a number 2 this week, and they didn't do anything wrong because I could see them using Houston and Arizona as number 1 seeds out of the Big 12. So, and St. John's, I like them as a 4, but they're probably a 5 because of those rankings that we rest on.
Real quick, Sam, you got anything here in the last 45 seconds?
Bill, we'll get to the Big 12 in the next segment, but just a state of the Big East right now. Everyone's talking about it's a down year. In the ever-evolving landscape of college sports, how does the Big East bounce back next year?
Well, I think, it comes down to the programs like Marquette and Georgetown. They have to be better. Creighton's having a rough year. Seton Hall, I still have them on the bubble, but when you're 7-7 in Big East play and you're on the outside looking in, that tells you a little bit about the state of the conference.
Bill Bender does a great job with the sporting news. He's going to hang out for one more segment, more college basketball to get to, and I got to throw in a college football question for good measure as well when it comes to Trinidad Chambliss. More to do on this Monday. Continuing with Bill Bender, the sporting news, does a great job on college basketball. Hangs out with Sam and myself.
I mean, Bill, it was a crazy weekend in the Big 12 basketball conference. We'll start with the Arizona game. Obviously, they fall to Texas Tech. What's your concern level at with the Wildcats between the loss to Kansas and now the loss to Texas Tech?
And they play Houston this week. This is the state of the conference is the top is awesome. Where you have Houston, like I was saying in the last segment, Houston and Arizona potential number 1s. You shoot Texas Tech up the board after that win. Kansas is really good. I know they lost. Iowa State's really good. They're top 5 teams. You put them against the top 5 in the Big Ten or the ACC, I might bet on the Big 12 winning most of those games because of the depth there. So, Houston's just crawling along too. same defense, second in the nation, same tough Kelvin Sampson team, interchangeable parts. And, my concern for Arizona is that they're running into the meat. They're going to take some bruises, but it doesn't mean that they're not a team that can make a national championship run. I just think from the last segment too, probably puts them a peg down from Michigan right now.
And is it the same for the Kansas game this weekend was obviously wild. You get your doors blown off. I know Iowa State's a good team, but you look at that final score and no one would have expected them to have had Darren Peterson in that game. How are you feeling about Kansas after having their doors blown off, albeit by a good team, but with their best player?
No, over the last couple of years, it becomes more of a thing in March. Is this the distraction? A couple of years ago, it was Bill Self's health. They'll have this deal where we're going to build them up to be a number 2 or number 3. And Peterson's obviously got to be a big part of that. He had a rough night Saturday too, obviously. So when you're talking about a player of that talent, then you turn around. But I think the lesson, Sam, is you don't play them at Allen Fieldhouse on Monday night if you're ranked. They just unbelievable in that spot. So again, another team that I have them on that 3 line, but you always kind of eyeball them like, yeah, they're still good enough to win it, but can they put the whole thing together? We've been having that conversation about Kansas since I was in 6th grade.
Stay in the Big 12. Kansas State fires Jerome Tang. Darren Tang's a professional bowler. Yeah, you'll have to forgive me for that. And I mean it. He actually is a professional bowler. And I watch his videos all the time. Why are you, Sam? It's an easy mistake to make if you watch Darren Tang bowl.
It is.
Okay.
It is. And this is the most publicity Darren Tang has gotten in a long time.
Actually, he's got a huge YouTube follow. He's one of those big YouTube bowlers. See, Sam, you're learning something new today. So Kansas State fires Tang. I'm just going to say Tang. For remember drinking Tang when we were kids? Anyway, Tang gets fired by Kansas State, and they say it's for cause. First of all, your thoughts on that, and then a follow-up question I have about coaching firings in college basketball. Go ahead.
Well, we're getting this starts it, right? Because there will be more, and they have to justify reasons to do it. And how he talked about players after the Cincinnati game, I don't know if that's reason. This is the same Kansas State team that we all loved a couple years ago when they made that run, with that team. So I think it's a tough one, but what is cause? It's like that joke from The Office, cause I hate him, they say, and or cause he's losing, basically. So we'll see how the details go, but rarely do the coaches win these ones, right? Because they'll find a way to fire you. They'll find a reason.
The quote, by the way, "These dudes do not deserve to wear this uniform," Tang said. "There'll be very few of them in it next year. I'm embarrassed for the university. I'm embarrassed for our fans, our student section. It's ridiculous. I have no answer, no words." By the way, I've heard coaches say a lot worse than that about their teams.
If we were doing like a
You've said that about your 6th grade girls, for crying out loud.
I have never said that about them, ever, first of all. But, yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10, that hits me like a 3 or 4.
Right, exactly.
We've heard guys profanity-laced tirades about how they're, go look. You want to look up YouTube videos? Go look up Bob Knight. And you tell me this is even close.
Of course. But real quick, because I want to let Sam get in one more if he has one. On the college basketball front, we saw so many college firings in college football. And there's tons of money being pumped into that sport, tons of money being pumped into college basketball. Is there a reason we're not seeing more of that in college basketball?
Well, maybe. But I thought, Gus Johnson made some headlines over the weekend when he was talking during the Virginia-Ohio State game. He said all of Ohio State's money went to Ryan Day. And, there's some talk around Diebler here in Columbus, and I think he's doing the best with what he has, to scrape into the tournament. This is the same program that, there's a lot of second guessing. We should have taken Calipari. We should have taken Dusty May. Well, in order to do that, you have to put the money into the basketball program that you're putting into the football program. And I think that's a question a lot of these schools, hint Indiana, are going to have over the next 10 years.
Sam, last question to you.
Bill, a couple of years ago, we saw this swing, right, from these football schools investing in their basketball teams and becoming, basketball powerhouses as well, like Alabama a few years ago. Do you think that because of exactly what you just said, we'll start to have a swing in the opposite direction, and schools will go back to what we're used to them being as either football or basketball centric schools?
Well, Jason will tell you. I mean, UConn tried in football, but it
Oh,
wasn't.
yes.
It's not who they are. UConn is March, men's and women's, and I think other schools, you can do both successfully. Michigan State has done that. Florida has done that. But look at Florida now. I mean, more success in basketball. Michigan State, more success in basketball. And I do think one of the things I'm wondering, because I do think this is going to be, and I'm not using hyperbole, this might be the best NCAA tournament in recent memory. Because of the number of teams that I think are not only capable of winning it, but they're really good teams that are fun to watch. And I wonder if some of these schools will have that aha moment you're talking about, Sam, where it's like, oh yeah, we're good at this sport. Why not invest in it?
Bill Bender, Sporting News, does a terrific job on all things college sports. I appreciate you, my friend.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome back to the show. I said we would talk some NASCAR today. Every Friday and Monday during the NASCAR season, we do a wraparound. We preview the race on Fridays. Tino Patino hangs out with us. We recap the race on Mondays. And here to help us do that, the one and only Jerry Bonkowski. Talks about all things auto racing, essentially sports, is where you can find his work. And we got a Daytona 500 to talk about, my friend. What a race it was. Tyler Reddick led for just one lap, and it was the only lap that mattered on Sunday, Jerry Bonkowski. What a wild finish to this race. You had two crashes at the end. Looked like Carson Hocevar might have his moment, and then he gets wrecked. There's a whole bunch of carnage behind Tyler Reddick as he crosses the start-finish line, and what a finish at Daytona.
It was. I mean, it wasn't the best Daytona 500, but was one of the better ones I've seen in the last 20, 25 years, probably. The thing is, if you would have told me 5 minutes before that race ended that Tyler Reddick was going to win, I would have said you're absolutely crazy. But he came out of nowhere. And the thing is, his record at Daytona has not been as good as it could be, but he does know how to run the restrictor plate tracks really well, Daytona and Talladega. So he timed his run towards the finish line perfectly. Chase Elliott was basically a sitting duck. I mean, Chase, I thought for sure was going to win. I mean, when they hit that final lap, I said, oh, this guy's, it's in the bag. And then all of a sudden, Riley Hurst, who's teammates of Tyler Reddick on 23XI Racing, he gave him a great push. He gets around Chase. And then Chase went, as I said in my story, Chase zigged and Tyler zagged and got past him and winds up winning the race. It was a good race. Wasn't the greatest, but it's good to see Tyler back in victory lane. And I think the underlying element of this entire story is Michael Jordan. I mean, he finally got championship number 7, if you want to call it that. You know what I'm saying? So,
and look, I mean, coming out of the caution there, everybody was like, wow, Michael McDowell played it perfect. He had played it perfect because he didn't go in for fuel or anything. And he's still in first when the caution hits. Everybody thinks it's going to be him that winds up being the big beneficiary. And it didn't work out that way.
Exactly. And Michael, he is probably one of the most unsung restrictor plate racing drivers there is. I mean, he won there in, what was it, 2021, I think it was, or 2022, whatever year it was. But he knows how to win that place. He's got it down to a science. And I thought like you, I thought for sure he was going to win it, and then things change, and as they typically do in the last lap of Daytona.
And I will say too, good, NASCAR gets a lot of criticism, and sometimes rightly so. But the fact that they did not go yellow in that final lap when you had the first wreck, a lot of people were, are they going to go yellow? And then it would have just ended, with whoever was in the lead at that point. I'm glad they just let it play out.
Yeah. Well, I think there was two reasons for that. Number one, obviously they wanted to play it out and have a green flag finish, checkered flag finish. But the other thing was the weather. The weather was coming very quickly, and it was literally within a couple of miles of the track. And I'd been tracking that weather for about an hour and a half before the end of the race, and it did not look good at all. So, if they would have thrown a yellow flag, and then what if the rain would have come, within a minute or two afterwards? That would have really, I think it would have disappointed a lot of fans to have the race finish under yellow. So I think they did the right thing by letting it finish under a checkered flag.
Jerry, the whole thing with 2311 Racing, the lawsuit, the whole thing that played out, for Michael Jordan to capture the first Daytona 500 for his team with Tyler Reddick under those circumstances. It really is amazing just how it all worked out.
Well, as I said in my story about Tyler, the word I used was redemption, and it was not only just for him, for the season he had last year, and he had the the personal situation with his 5-month-old son was really sick. They had to have surgery on him. Was also redemption for Michael Jordan. I mean, the whole trial, all the back and forth, all the emails and texts and things that were said, it was redemption for him. So I think that if anything, this is going to keep will keep Michael Jordan in the sport for a long, long time to come. I wouldn't have said that 6 months ago. Now I will, for sure.
All right. How does it break down, for sort of what we expect to see here throughout the season? We got Atlanta next. With Tyler Reddick winning this race, Kyle Busch was the pole sitter for this race, and obviously things didn't wind up going the way that he had hoped. Give me sort of a peek ahead to sort of what intrigues you most as we go through the rest of this season.
Well, one thing I learned about 25, 30 years ago, I was talking to a veteran reporter, a NASCAR reporter, David Poole, the late David Poole.
Yeah.
And one thing he said is, throw Daytona out the window. It's not going to have any impact on the rest of the season because it's a restrictor plate track. It's a unique race unto its own. He said you have to get through the first 4 or 5 races. You have to get through, Atlanta. You'll have to get through Vegas. You have to get through Phoenix, and then we'll have an idea who's going to be the top dog, if you will. So I think that certainly by winning the Daytona 500, they'll definitely help Tyler Reddick and 23XI. Bubba Wallace, his teammate, finished 10th. Bubba was very disappointed because he thought he was going to win that one. He led most races or most laps in the race too as well. But I think that by the time we get through to either Phoenix or Vegas, the 3rd or 4th race in the season, we're going to have a pretty good idea of who's going to have a good year and who's going to have a bad year. The problem though is if you get off to a bad start, the more races you get into the season, the harder it is to get back. So if you have a bad Daytona 500, you shake it off, you go to Atlanta and hope you can do something pretty well there. It's not a restrictor plate track, but it's one of the fastest tracks there is in the sport. So if you do well at Atlanta, that will be a good omen, hopefully, for the rest of the season for you and your team.
Jerry Bonkowski does a great job. If you want to read about all things auto racing, go and check him out, essentiallysports.com. I hope we get to see you out here in Las Vegas this year for the race. It has become now one of my favorite things to do since I've moved out here. I've gotten a chance to go out and see a couple of races. It only took me 20 years, but I have finally started to adopt NASCAR as one of my favorite things to watch.
Well, you owe me an In-N-Out double-double, so when I go out there, we're going to go to In-N-Out Burger, and I'm going to get my double-double. We had a bet. I still remember that bet we made.
That's a done deal. I live right down the street from one. They're everywhere out here. Jerry, always appreciate you, my friend. Be well. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, Jason. Take care now.
About time to put the wraps on this baby for a Monday. Before we say goodbye, a couple of reminders. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast, available on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon, you name it. Anywhere you get a podcast, you can listen to this show Monday through Friday in crystal clear audio, 45 minutes sitting there for you early each afternoon. It works just as well in its audio form as it does its video form. Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel, the place to find all things Sports Wrap with Jason Page. The 1 hour daily Monday through Friday TV version of the show, we cut it down to 45 minutes. We take all the commercials out and you can watch it on our YouTube channel, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. Sports Wrap shorts available as well. Go and check those out. 1 to 3 minute long videos, breaking news, top stories of the day, the biggest games every day and night. We have them covered with Sports Wrap shorts. Go and check those out as well. Sports Wrap shorts also available on our TikTok, Sports Wrap Jason Page, and on our Instagram, you guessed it, Sports Wrap Jason Page. Now, without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, on this Monday, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. A few things I want to get to from the weekend that was. Let's start with the Seahawks and Raiders. You got guys kind of moving around here. You talked about this, I think, last week on the show when we were getting into Clint Kubiak was going to do with his staff. And you're like, well, maybe bring some guys along. How does that impact the Seahawks with Sam Darnold and the growth that you continued to see with him? What would they do? The Seahawks bring in the QB. The Raiders bring in the QB coach from the Seahawks to become their offensive coordinator. Start there, Sam. Las Vegas is going to become Seattle Southwest, I guess.
I mean, you got to feel good for Fernando Mendoza, right? Like, if any, I'm serious, Jason. If anything, like in a bad quarterback class, which I think everybody would agree that it is,
now
especially with the Trinidad Chambliss news. This is a bad quarterback class, straight up, easy to say. In a bad quarterback class, I don't think that it is that far off to say what Fernando Mendoza is not the furthest thing from what Sam Darnold was coming into Seattle from a raw talent perspective. Maybe not from a career resume perspective, but certainly from a raw talent perspective. And I think if you take away the 1 year at Indiana, quite frankly, for Fernando Mendoza, and you're looking at like a Cal Fernando Mendoza, it's kind of the same thing. So I love this move for the Raiders, but that's because I'm the number one Raiders guy on this show, and I am the maybe number one Raiders guy in all of sports media right now, I love what this team is doing headed into next year. The other side of this, you mentioned, it's worrisome for Seattle, right? You had Sam Darnold, you finally got something that worked to get you by, got you by all the way to the Super Bowl where he had the game of his life on the way, and now he's got to learn a whole new staff? Jason, it's nerve-wracking from a Seahawks perspective and promising from a Raiders perspective.
By the way, I didn't intend to talk about this but I forgot to slip it in. Derek Carr says he would unretire to play for the right team and basically go ring hunting. If you're ring hunting and you're an NFL team, is Derek Carr really the guy you're calling to get up off the couch? I'm just saying. Not saying. I'm just saying.
We saw how bad Chris Oladukin was for the Chiefs this past year. Maybe Derek Carr gets them over until Patty Mahomes comes back.
I don't think that would be his idea, though. He wants to go win a Super Bowl somewhere, not be a backup when Patrick Mahomes comes back. So I don't think
but he could
that.
At least win games this year. I don't know. If he went anywhere, I wouldn't be surprised if it was the Chiefs. If he is in fact ring chasing.
We will revisit this on the show tomorrow. Where could Derek Carr wind up? Because it's the spring and summer now, and we can do that. Odds and ends. Collin Morikawa could not look more lost a week ago, and now he's the winner at Pebble Beach. I don't know what's going on anymore, Sam. And Scotty Scheffler, if he actually could figure out how to play the opening round of some of these tournaments lately, he'd actually have 2 more wins because he damn near almost won yesterday. He went 9 under on his final round, got out there early before all the winds went crazy. And Collin Morikawa is your winner, though, Sam, at Pebble Beach. You almost won that live bet, my friend.
Scotty Scheffler's got to change up whatever he's having for breakfast on Thursday mornings or something. He's got to figure that one out. The display of resiliency from Collin Morikawa is one that athletes across sport should study, to go from where he was, like you said, Jason, a week and 2 days ago to where he was yesterday. It is truly an incredible feat of mental strength by an athlete that not a lot out there in the world have. Incredible by him. Yeah, we're going to have to start betting on Scotty on Friday mornings.
Seriously. 2 tournaments in a row. He almost came up like the phoenix out of the ashes to win a tournament, but it did not happen. It's going to do it for us. Wraps it up for this Monday edition of the show. Thank you, Jerry Bonkowski. Thank you to Bill Bender. Thank you to you, Sam Yarnell. Thanks to all of you at home for watching. We will be back on Tuesday for an all-new edition of Sports Wrap. We'll see you all then. I'm Jason Page. Have a good one. Hi there, I'm Jason Page. You like what you're watching? Subscribe. We've got Sports Wrap Shorts on this channel. We've got the show. We've got clips from the show. What else do you have to do? You probably follow a lot of other things that aren't half of they're not half as exciting as this show is. So what are you waiting for? Click the subscribe button, follow the channel, watch the content. Bye.